worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends? Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends? Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all. Tyler, Phil, and Boris. So Canon, it's Canon, it's all in Canon.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the It's Canon Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things geek, the podcast where we talk about all things pop culture, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything, including video games, comic books, movies, TV shows, Lego, anything and everything. If it happens, we're going to be talking about it. We're your hosts. I'm Boris, and as always, I am joined by Phil.
It almost worked this week. Hey, do you know what today marks? A very special day in Star Wars time. Today was the opening day for Empire Strikes Back 44 years ago.
There you go. 44 years.
44
years.
Not sure if I was there for it. I know I've seen it in the theater. So I'm old enough. I should have been
44 years. Pants. That's crazy. That is crazy, my friend.
Yeah,
Bill?
That one kind of blew at me on the internets, on Twitter today. I was like, oh, wow. That's a long time ago. So how have you been?
Pretty good. Been a week.
Good.
It's been a busy week.
Yeah.
Beautiful weather here in southern Ontario that we're seeing. The weekend was absolutely wonderful. It was great.
Yeah, it went from nice, pretty cold spring to instant summer.
Yeah. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy how that happened.
Humid, hot, stinky. It's that time of year where you gotta have a couple showers a day if you're not careful.
Right?
I know. I've had to revert to mounting all the fans and everything because my 86-year-old father, ever since he's had his issues with health, has decided that he finds air conditioning too cold.
Yes.
So now it's like, oh man, the house is just this sweat hut. I'm not complaining. Like, what are you gonna do? At least I'm working from home. So
exactly, man. Exactly. Even if I wasn't in office, I'd be working from home at this point. The Montreal office closed where I work.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, after the acquisition, right? It's barely anyone was working from the office, and it's an expensive spot, and we had a huge spot because the company was growing at the time. But the new powers that be figured, well, everyone's home. Why pay for rent?
It's kind of funny because we had a substantial footprint as well, my company. They shrank it down a little bit. They were responsible in some of the offices and the outlying offices that they could easily dispatch people to. But what they ended up doing was they only supplied about a half of the desk space needed. So there's no way we can all come back to the office at once. And there's nobody keeping track of anything. So it just kind of feels a little bit hectic because I'm like, I don't really want to go in because I'm not sure if there's going to be a desk with 2 monitors on it or not. It's going to be hard to
That's the worst part. Yeah.
It's incomplete. It's not square, but I know they're working on it. I know, I'm fortunate. Like I say, I don't really enjoy the commute anymore. So this is great for my pocketbook and my advantage. So, and I get stuff done. So, happy as a clam.
Right? Kind of win out there.
Yeah, I tried a new show this week. Trying it. I know I've got X-Men to watch and whatnot, but I kind of got suckered into that Outer Range.
Yeah, you messaged me. Talk to me about it.
second season of it, but I started back at the first because I had not gone down that rabbit hole. Josh Brolin's in it, so I was.
So this is that. Just to summarize it, it's essentially a sci-fi drama type of show.
Yeah, there's something weird in this farmer in Josh Brolin's fields that he discovers, him and his sons, and it's basically a hole in the ground that has no bottom. It's a portal. And you don't know where the other end is. And somebody in the first episode, he falls into it, or he gets pushed into it. And it kind of took him to a different timeline where he was dead. And his wife told him to run. And when he ran, he ended up back in the regular timeline. So I don't understand the mechanics of it yet. I'm only about halfway through the first season. But it's okay. It's a little bit small town, a little bit country western. Lots of great acting in it. Quirky characters. It's your typical drama, though. There's always a murder and a crime to solve and people fighting over things like people do. They say, you took my land and I'm taking yours and blah, blah, blah. So it's a little bit tiring that way, but hey, you're going to try something. So what have you been watching?
I've been watching. What have I been watching? I feel like I've watched a lot, but yet nothing at all. Obviously, I finished X-Men. Fantastic end there. That was a lot of fun. I really did like that a lot. Very good stuff. Yesterday evening, my friend messaged me and she was telling me about the show that her and her daughter watched, and it was this show called hold on, let me get the name right. The name always eludes me.
Fair enough.
It's called The 8 Show.
Okay.
It's a Korean drama type of show. It is Squid Game meets this Spanish movie called The Platform meets, I don't even know, reality TV, but it's not reality TV, it's a drama. It's essentially 8 people. They're trapped in this 8-story building. They're in a game show, but they don't know any of the rules. And every hour they're making money. And there's a timer, and as the timer counts down and goes down to 0, then they leave with however much money they earned. A lot of twists, a lot of turns, a lot of cool things. I'm like halfway through the season. I think it's 8 episodes, but goddamn, it's good.
Makes sense.
What?
8 episodes. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, right. Because every episode it's kind of like they focus on one character, not like solely. There is one main character that the focus is on. Yeah,
it's funny, I still haven't watched Squid Game.
I know you haven't. You will.
What's that? I know.
You will.
At one point, I will pick it up when it's completely off the radar. But they brought up the Acolyte. Latest fan outrage. They showed a 30-second trailer of the Acolyte. It's one of these sizzle reels. And the lightsaber turns into a whip.
Yeah.
And fans are freaking out over that. And not in the good way. Even though
Why?
This has been established in canon already.
Exactly. I was going to say.
It was in the EU. It was canonized under the New Republic. This is not. It's a new concept to screen, but not Star Wars.
But just remember, we were literally talking about this a few weeks ago.
We're always talking about this. It's the male, the guardians of the whole Star Wars universe that tell everybody what can and can't be canon. Like the guys like Star Wars Theory that say there are no bricks in Star Wars. There are no nuts and bolts in Star Wars. What the hell do you think is happening here? Because he was upset that there was bricks, that someone got cremated into a brick in Andor. And I'm just like, there's bricks in Star Wars because Star Wars is ours. It just because a creator decided to expand on the lore of something that you consider mundane doesn't mean you get to call it out and say that doesn't exist because I didn't authorize it. And it just feels like
Right.
that's the same gatekeeping as this is. Like, oh no, don't show lightsabers that are whips because I haven't said that that's okay. Yeah, and we didn't say that it was okay for Kylo Ren to have a crossguard, but damn it, we all accepted it and loved it after a while.
Did people freak out with a Darth Maul's double-edged lightsaber back in 1999?
No, because this
Case in
toxicity
point.
didn't exist. Right?
Exactly.
They were too busy hating on Jar Jar. But they didn't have the internet to advertise it.
It was very early. It was very early of the internet there.
Yep.
99.
Oh,
That's when I got the internet.
Yeah, that was around, but we weren't organized on the internet. You were still trying to figure out what the hell was going on.
Well, 99% of people started on AOL, right? AOL.
AOL, yeah. I started on a small Canadian ISP called NetRover.
NetRover. Yeah, I heard of them.
Yeah, I actually worked for them for a while too. So it was
my brother built the computer from MDG. Was it MDG?
Oh yeah, MTG. Yeah.
Did you work for them?
I did not work for them. I worked for an outfit called Wise Guy Computers. And I made a computer there was a computer place in Mississauga. My first computer was a 386 with 2 megabytes of RAM. And I actually got Windows 3.11 running on it.
Wow. We had a 486 that ran Windows 3.1, and it had an 8 meg hard drive, which was fucking crazy.
Huge.
It had a modem. The 486, that bad boy had a modem.
Well, did it have a coupler? Or was it? It was, so you had to put the receiver in? Yeah, because we used to have, when, like, this is going back way before the 386, my friend Andrew in his basement had a Commodore 128 with a coupler modem.
Wow.
And we could dial into bulletin boards and download like pictures of topless women. And it would take like an hour to download, and it was the most awkward teenage experience of your life. So it was like getting that and all these things, bulletin boards were like places, repositories of like evil libraries of stuff you're not supposed to get. Nude pictures and anarchist cookbooks and things like that. It was like the pre-dark web. You know what I mean?
It was basically the dark web moved to the dark web once it got popular. Right? But the web was entirely like fucked up back then.
It was an experience having two kids learn about the world through bulletin boards and common connections, and just, like, I went to start work at Staples, which is Business Depot now. And the guy I was working with, he hosted the bulletin board that we used to go and get all that stuff from. And I actually worked with him at Wise Guys. That's right. Him and I kind of worked together for a few runs there. It's such a small world. I'm like, you're the guy who owns that bulletin board? Oh, wow. Thank you.
I remember, I don't even know why Juan needed the computer. But essentially, I remember it took us the full day on Saturday. We went from the Bay to Grand and Toy to Sears to what was the source called back then? Radio Shack. Yeah, we went fucking everywhere trying to look for this fucking computer for this kid. I think it was 1991, so I guess he was in grade 10.
Wow. See, that was around the time that I started, probably about 92, 93. I was assistant manager at Wise Guys. And we were selling 486s a lot, Packard Bells.
Bells.
Yeah, we had Pentiums. And then we got Acers. And the Acer brand had like a 1 gigahertz Pentium, which we'd never seen before.
Remember?
And we were crazy.
The meltdown that people had when Windows 95 came out, when you figured that when the reality of computers and upgrading came.
Yeah. That was our feast. Was Windows 95 upgrades and multimedia upgrade boxes.
Yep.
People used to come in and drop $500 to $600 on a CD-ROM drive with speakers and an assortment of shitware in it. And then they'd come and pay us an extra $100 to $200 to install it into their PC. And that was we were licking our lips because that begat the RAM upgrades. So all of a sudden people started going from 8 megabytes of RAM to 16 and things like that. But the price of RAM, 30 pin parity, and there's parity and no parity RAM, you had to match them. But the price of that stuff was going up to be like it was $200 for a 4 megabyte stick. So you get 2 4s to make 8, you get 2 8s to make 16. You're just talking money. And the cost on it, like, this is what people didn't realize. This is where the douchebaggery of the industry was. The cost on it that we were importing it from China, and we were paying $4 a megabyte and marking it up because market had inflated the price. So my boss was just like asking me, can you go home, pop your Sims, and I'll give you double the Sims because I can move those faster than I can move these. So I got a free 16 megabyte upgrade, man. I was just like, you can have my 4s. I don't give a shit.
Right? It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Yeah, because remember, that's when 95, I believe that's when Pentium 3s came out, and people were freaking out because of the motherboard size, and that's when people realized, hey, I need to change my entire fucking motherboard if I want to run this.
Yep. And you also had the arms race with AMD video cards.
I was going to say, then on top of that, you had the whole Pentium versus Intel versus AMDs. And that's when Intel, when Intel was being very, very sneaky with their Celerons. Yep.
Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of douchebaggery moves. Like, Celerons were
Which still happen.
Yeah. Oh, people, I know.
Luckily, the younger generation is smart enough to learn about the basics of computers.
Yeah. And even if they don't, there's a standard. They're so overbuilt now. It's hard to go wrong with a computer these days, unless you're really going and buying a Chromebook or something that's very underpowered and very OS dependent. But the Apple stuff is outperforming. The the Intel stuff is outperforming. And you're even getting, like, some of the mobile stuff is getting in there, AMD, everything like that. Like, all these things are just built to a pretty good standard that if you just spend your money smartly, you're probably going to get a pretty good PC. It's just a question of whether or not you want advanced video card or not. Because if you do, you got to build in an extra $1,000 for the video card.
That's exactly it. It's like, what NVIDIA card do you want? Or do you want a regular one, like built in, or do you want the extra?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And even then, like, it's just crazy. But then NVIDIA is kind of like just being dumb about what they're doing in terms of pricing themselves out from so many people.
The problem that I have with that rat race, this is why I had to stop with expandable computers. You saw my chassis now. It's the size of a hockey puck. That's to keep me out of it, because I know that I can't stop myself from upgrading every single thing. So I've already been down this road, and I'm tired of, it was one thing when you could do the upgrades for $100 at a time. But at this point, the upgrades being $1,000 at a time, I'd rather play on the consoles. You know what I mean?
Dude, that's exactly it, right? Like, the only time I really played a lot of computer games were 2 moments of my life. Number one, with the 486, because nothing fucking mattered. And that's where I learned kind of like scripting and stuff, right? Because I used to do the Lucas DOS, the Lucas Load. Remember how you had to put in that software in before you could even play any of the games and stuff?
Oh, you used to have to, there was Stacker that you could compress your memory, but you also had batch files that you could load up that would avoid loading stuff and reload right from the DOS prompt.
Yep. Created really cool stuff, right? Like, so I had all the games already programmed in the computer, and then wrote batch scripts that would launch a program and then give you, like, press 1 for this game, press 2 for that game, press 3 for that game.
Yeah, you always had that
Made life easier.
640K barrier. Remember, you had to work
Yeah.
within that barrier in order to slide your scripts in.
Exactly.
It's just crazy time, man. And remember, they were so insistent. 640K barrier is going to be there for the eternity of computers. It's a non-solvable problem. And then they solved it.
What's really funny though is like, so I learned, that's why I consider myself a very good programmer. I learned the old school way where you had limits to your hardware, right?
Yeah.
And you couldn't program outside of those limits or else you're fucked. So my methodology, my ideology of software creation has always been, you take whatever you're given and try your fucking darndest to refine the code as best as you can so that it runs as best as humanly possible. So you damn well need to know your hardware and your software and anything, right? And any variations of that.
Yeah.
The new school doesn't have that limitation anymore. Look at video games.
This is, my friend and I complain about it more than we should. But Forza Horizon 5, which is the video game I play the most. So I have the most observable experience to the month-to-month or week-to-week basis. The last patch that dropped, I haven't checked today's patch. It's probably why my packets were really inflated because my computer didn't update right before the show too. But why my load size was just out of whack on that network. The patch size was 12 gigabytes. And that's a patch.
Dude, I don't understand this. So, like, I run nothing on this thing, okay? I have 32 gigs on this computer. Like, why, when I open up my memory, is, like, Spotify running on 34 meg or, like a huge fucking chunk?
Yep. There's just a lot of, to be honest, like with this new computer that I have, I am trying to keep it unburdened. I'm not installing apps. If I'm going to use Spotify, I'm going to go to the website. It's like literally I'm keeping everything as locked down as I can from my
I'm the same way with
routine.
this computer because this is the computer where I do all my editing, all my recording. I do the radio show off here, so I have the bare minimum here. Unfortunately, the bare minimum is all the graphics programs, the video programs, the audio programs, Spotify, to grab music for the show and stuff like that, right? But like, you explain to me why Spotify is using 95 megs of memory constantly.
Oh, I know.
Explain to me why Microsoft Teams, which isn't even turned on, is using 95 megs of memory. Explain to me why Google Chrome is using 2.6 gigs of memory.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy what these backdoor load and lifts do to your overhead. it's your memory is just all up for grabs, isn't it?
That's the problem. Like, what's the point in having so much memory, right?
Yeah, it's true. I hear you. I'm old man yells at cloud on this stuff.
Hey, I am too. It's funny because when it comes to tech, I am, just because it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why doesn't this work like it used to? It's crazy. Okay, Phil, I'm gonna give you an option this week for our topic du jour. We can either talk about the Tick-Tock ban, or we can talk about the streaming services and how they're all being bundled now in the US of A. And in Canada.
I'm gonna go Tick-Tock ban.
All right, we're talking Tick-Tock ban a little
I know
later,
that we're gonna talk about the streaming services at some point. TikTok is like one of those hot buttons right now.
Yep. So let's start with some random news. Anything else that you're playing, watching?
No, it's been relatively calm. It was a long weekend here in Canada. Happy Victoria Day, everybody. And I know Memorial Day is coming up for our American friends. Yeah, I know that you went to the game, the TFC game.
I did.
Saw pictures. I'm jealous. I'm gonna go soon. I'm gonna.
I was gonna message you. I think you and I need to have a mandate over at a TFC game.
Yeah, I agree. Jordan, my account manager, has reached out to me as well because he wants to throw a little party or something and welcome me back to home. So he said beers are on him, I believe, at one point. So I'm gonna
said the same to me.
Okay, I'm gonna test him because
test him.
Yeah, I'm gonna test him.
He's my account manager too.
I know he's like everybody's account manager. I think
he's all of ours, like on the south end.
Yeah, it might be. So I am planning to go back. I'm probably going to be going back in July because a friend of mine, his wife is going on a trip in July. So he's got the extra room in his place and he's within walking distance of BMO. So I'm probably going to be crashing at his place and taking the GO train down for a game. So I don't have to worry about driving in that city. But what I had have happen was I had my dear friend Dave drop by and we sat and shot the shit for 3 hours on my deck. And that was, I grew up with Dave. He's my best friend. Was my best man at my wedding and I his. And yeah, it was just good to just relax and really, connect. And then afterwards he drove home and I got to sit down and watch the Blue Jays game with my dad, which ended up being really special for me. So I had a really relaxing day yesterday. I had an easy day at work for a change. And that's about it, man. That's my update on my life. More information than anyone ever needs to know. So
right. More information than most people even give a shit to know.
Yeah. So that's my boring life. That's my boring life, man. And
I did go to the game on Saturday. That was a lot of fun. Met up with Kevin, my buddy Kevin, for his first outing since having a little one. So that was a lot of fun, just catching up with him. Saw my dad, my sister went to the game as well. Said hi to them before the game, and then did my thing. Kevin and I went out after Kevin and I went out for a couple beers after. Got home relatively early and just called it a night, man. The sun got to me that day. It was pretty sunny that day, and I went out for a long walk. I've been trying to get a lot of walks in. Actually, there's this app. Kind of like this app. It is called. Give me one sec. People need to stop messaging me when I'm doing this stuff. This app is called Sweatcoin, and it essentially gamifies walking. Right, you get sweat coins for X amount of steps that you take, and then you can use these sweat coins to purchase like gift certificates. You can even buy Lego and stuff like that. Yeah, it's very cool.
I saw that there's one
not endorsed by them whatsoever, but I think it's really cool gamifying this stuff, right?
Yeah, I saw that there's a similar app that does it for Star Wars physical coins that they will send you as you earn your way. And then you can change the Star Wars coins. They light up the lightsabers and stuff like that. There's all interesting little things. But Instagram's learned that I like Star Wars.
Right.
So, yeah. That's awesome, though. Good for you. I'm glad.
Yeah, no. There's a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to getting steps in soon.
Yeah, man. It's just one of the things that just keeps me honest. What else? So Sunday I did the radio show, and then that was just like Sundays are a write-off. Usually super busy doing that. And then yesterday I just tried to relax, man, and it was so hot. So I made the mistake of going for a walk in the middle of the afternoon. As you can see, my skin is like 2 different shades right now.
Yeah, it was even I was exposed a little bit with the skin, and I could feel myself crisping up. So I hear you. It was hot out there.
All right, let's talk about a few things before we get to our topic du jour, which this week will be the Tick-Tock ban. Did you see this Apple bug where your recently deleted photos are actually coming back?
What? That's terrible.
Yeah. Right? Last week, an alarming complaint popped up from iPhone owners on Reddit and elsewhere where old photos long since deleted had resurfaced in their Photos app. Vacations, nudes, concerts, all unexpectedly returned like an unwelcome pet cemetery cat. Today, Apple finally acknowledged the bug and pushed out a fix, but the incident underscores a forgotten truth of memories in the digital age, which I love to remind people this: deletion is a myth.
Yep. Going back to the old days. Hate to be the old guy in the room.
Again.
But again, and still. I remember that if you had pictures, you had to go to a store in Canada.
Can you hear me still? Can you hear me? Hello. So apparently we can't hear you. You are the issue. Gotta love this live stuff. Gotta love this live streaming stuff that's happening here. I don't even remember what we were talking about, to be 100% honest. What was it? We were talking old man. Oh yeah. He was having another old man rant. Gotta love those old man Phil rants. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yeah. So another thing that I wanted to talk about here is Adult Swim is launching a Toonami rewind block with Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z Kai, and Naruto. Apparently this is going to be the 90s Sailor Moon, not Crystal, which is kind of cool. But that is coming to Adult Swim, which also reminds me that there is going to be I believe it is a My TV network. They're launching in a new cartoon network that's going to be showing a lot of those old school cartoons, like the old school Looney Tunes, and things like that. I wonder how they're going to be able to actually handle a lot of the cultural differences from back then and now. Phil, are you back?
I think I'm back. Am I back?
Oh, you're back. You're back, my friend.
Oh, good. Sorry, I didn't mean to have the technical issue, but I must have had a technical issue.
Yeah.
I was just explaining that, we had to have our photos processed. And
yeah.
You would be assured that you got your photos back, but you also had the code of ethics to not drop off anything that was going to embarrass anybody by going through on the roll and being exposed to the public. So the guys would look at the negatives before they'd process the film and refuse to develop certain photos and whatnot. So you had to go home to develop those photos if you wanted them.
Two things. Number one, remember like Blacks and one of those types of companies where they would have like a window display of the photos being processed.
Yep. You could watch them on the run in the
Yeah.
mall. So
Yeah.
I had a friend who worked at Black's, and that's what I was explaining, that what he had to do was like kind of proof each roll before he'd process it, because he didn't want to offend people outside. So yeah, that was the comp for making sure that you could still take a bad photo, but you weren't going to subject a photo of something embarrassing because of the public humility. You're going to be laughed at. So that filter is now gone in the digital world, and I think the mindset hasn't left us like, oh, that's my photo, and when I delete it, it's gone. No, it's not, ladies and gentlemen. It's gone into the cloud. Like,
it is very easy to get that shit back. Not only the cloud, but even when you think you deleted it from your actual device, there's forensics way of getting ones and zeros back, because it doesn't actually delete. It puts it in like the state of to be deleted.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. Just be careful, people. Like, honestly,
you know what this reminds me of? Remember that episode of Seinfeld when George takes the raunchy pictures?
Yeah. It's I can remember my giddy excitement purchasing my first digital camera and being like, I can take a picture of whatever I want. Like, the biggest thing is I didn't have to pay to develop it. Right? That was my thrill, was not to get nudes or anything like that. It was just that I could take a picture of whatever I wanted and become a better photographer and not have to pay for the mistakes. That was the biggest kick. And apparently, being a phone technician, people do crazy things with their phones. I can tell you that. I'd never buy a used phone or a used a keyboard. Things I will not touch.
Right?
Yeah. So it's never gone. Jennifer Lawrence is forever learning that, I feel.
Yeah. Well, that's bound to happen. Sorry, I'm trying to bring something up. Does this come up? Okay. Have you seen this 2 terabyte PS5 compatible SSD? Right now, it's on sale in the States, and you can buy it for just $109. In Canada, you can buy it for $165.
That's a pretty good price on a very well-sized SSD. I've got a 1 terabyte expansion in mine.
Yep.
And
109 US, 165 Canadian.
Man. You know why that is, actually. Now it makes sense. Because
why is that, Phil?
Because it's what's the technology behind that one? It's not NVMe, that's the RAM. It's it's already moved to the second generation of that SSD.
Yeah, the UD90 NVMe.
NVMe. It's already on NVMe 2. So that means NVMe 1 stuff is just going to become cheap, because the 2 stuff will be in demand. It's already exceeded past. But, like, geez, man, that's great. That's a fantastic price. Because my computer uses NVMe 2. And I was shocked that it's already gone through a generation change. Yeah. So, it's moving fast.
So, Square Enix's stock tumbled 16% last week out of bad news that apparently Final Fantasy VII Rebirth impressed critics, but it didn't impress the market per se. So there was a sales shortfall. It isn't exclusive to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but they also found that Foam Stars also did not sell as much as the company forecasted. Per Bloomberg, the operating income of 32.5 billion yen represents a 26.6 year-on-year decrease from 2023, and the company projected an overall operating income of 40 million yen, well short of the 57 million yen average analyst projection.
Yeah, they kind of said that they're ending their exclusive deals with PlayStation as a result.
Mm-hmm. Because they want more
blame this on
availability.
PlayStation. Yeah. And like, let's be honest here, though. The majority of the console users that are going to play Square Enix games, not all, but
the majority are
PlayStation.
They're PlayStation users. PlayStation has always been the RPG console.
Yeah.
If you want RPGs, you play PlayStation. If you like sports, you get Xbox. That's kind of been the divide.
Yeah. Yeah, it has. And I know Xbox has its shining moments on the RPG kind of front and has those dual titles as well. I don't know that those games do that much better if they have Xbox availability. It's just a matter of, I think those games all suffered from release window crunch, in the sense that not the crunch on the programmers or anything, but the marketplace was crowded with other RPGs at the time. Because I can remember sitting there going, do I want to buy that, or do I want to buy this, or do I want to buy this? You know, there was a number of games competing for my attention. The way that they thought they could circumvent this was to release demos of these games. But it's no fun downloading like a huge demo, having it sit there, and then realize that you haven't finished the other game. So should you start the sequel? You know what I mean? It feels like there's a lot of broken shit in there, and the games aren't small. So for casual gamers, I know that the dedicated fans are going to be the dedicated fans. They're going to buy it sight unsaid and play it. But for a guy like me that might struggle with the amount of hours needed for that RPG, it's, daunting, because I had some fun with the original 7 remake, but I never finished it. It felt too daunting. It got to be way too big and way too demanding and way too insistent on learning way too much too fast and mastering it. Like, there wasn't a well done curve for, even in the story mode of, you still had failures. It's like, try playing Elden Ring, man. It's hard.
Oh my god! Don't even get me started on that fucking game.
I can't get out of the tutorial on that game, and I think that's a fucking shame for developers. Like, I'm all for making a game as hard as possible if you got the fan base for it, but you should also conversely make the game easy so that we can all talk about it together.
Well, people are talking about it, right? People are talking about it, like how they rage quit with it and stuff like that.
Yeah. I know that company's got a lot to be proud of from software, and Square Enix, I've played some bangers from them. Like Sleeping Dogs was fantastic. I don't know why there's not Sleeping Dogs 2.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy, fantastic. They've had a lot of sneak successes. It's just these big ones, they kind of boff it.
Avengers?
Final Fantasy,
not so much.
That's true. Avengers was garbage. But that Final Fantasy one that crashed the PS5s, that one, again, another huge epic game. I played the demo, it crashed my machine. I bought the game when it went on deep sale. But a lot more gamers are buying games on deep sale because, man, the economy, look at it.
Read the room.
Yeah, it's hard to drop AAA game prices, especially when you're upping them.
And giving you less content.
Yeah, and giving you
people
less.
Are going to start waiting for the Game of the Year editions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll pick up the game impulsively for $20 or even $40. But look at Sony this month. Aren't they giving away with your PlayStation Plus account? They're giving away Last of Us Remaster 2. So that's free now. You know what I mean? It was free
bullshit.
Anyway. It was $10.
Considering I bought that for my nephew, like, it was like, motherfuckers.
Yeah. But it's basically included with it. But we had to wait. You know what I mean? It's I waited on that Final Fantasy game to go on sale before I bought it. And I'll do the same with that Rebirth thing. So they'll get my money.
Speaking of 2K, speaking of sports, 2K plans to reveal the next iteration of sports games on Friday, June 7th at their Summer Game Fest thingy.
Whoop-de-doo. How we're going to advertise.
You know what's interesting, though? You know what's until right now, when I was like, well, not right now, but like earlier when I was doing research for this show, I forgot that E3 isn't the thing anymore.
Yeah, E3's gone now.
Like, I don't care.
It's Summer Game Fest. Summer Game
Fest.
I said.
That's what I said. I said Summer Game Fest.
I know. It's. I'm just laughing at it because it's not Summer Games Fest. It's Summer Game Fest.
Summer Game Fest. Sony is going to reveal their long-term vision this month, and they're describing it as essential.
Oh, this is all disgusting corporate speak. And Xbox, their move has leaked that they're going to put Call of Duty in Game Pass.
Remember, they have two new CEOs.
Yeah, Xbox has revealed Game Pass subscription is costing them money. They're not making money. They're not able to drive subs up. They're bleeding out on subs to the point where they had to shutter 5 studios. And PlayStation are going to announce their strategy on how they think they can get past this. And I'll bet you they're going to screw it up royally. That's my guess.
Speaking of screwing things up royally, like, this is how short-sighted PlayStation or not PlayStation, but Sony is. And if you really think about it, last week on the show, we were talking about that Helldivers bullshit that happened, right?
Yep.
They also announced last week that Helldivers 2 sold 12 million copies out of the gate to become PlayStation's fastest selling game ever, dethroning the record set by God of War Ragnarok.
Wow. And then they moved and put the same restriction on Ghost of Tsushima on PC.
Yep. Here's a fun little fact. Did you know, talking about sales, and like this just goes to show you, right? Like this whole and I'm not taking a side, I'm just presenting data at this point.
Trying to be objective at this point, yep.
Trying to be.
Objectively presenting.
PS5 has outsold the Xbox Series X and S 3-1 in 2023.
Not shocked. If there ever is writing on the wall about a failure, it's what's happening in Microsoft right now with their Xbox division, because they failed on the last cycle as well on the bone.
They failed on hardware. Yeah. So they moved their strategy to a more software-based strategy. They're fucking that pooch up hard to the point where there's so much pressure on them. Phil, is there a world where Xbox is no more?
I think we're starting to enter into the theoretical territory of what that looks like, because I think it's very clear that Phil Spencer has had the tap on the shoulder from Microsoft's uppers and said, we're no longer using you as an amusement piece. You spent $69 billion to get Activision Blizzard. If you don't start returning that cash, if we don't see returns on the investment, if we continue to see loss after loss on each quarter, there's a point at which we're going to walk away from this business. And that's going to be catastrophic, because it's this all in on Game Pass, which isn't taking off to the degree that they need it to. They're not able to get subscriptions up for Starfield and other such games. It's the guys who have Game Pass, the people who have Game Pass, who wanted Game Pass, have it. There's no new market now that's just going to go out and spend $600 or $500 on a console and then a subscription fee each month. It's just not going to happen. There's no easy way to, like, my friend is a great example of a guy who would absolutely, my friend Mike, who I play the Forza Horizon 5 with, he refuses to buy Game Pass because he knows he's probably going to be unemployed. Like he's just like, he's the type of guy that's going to go through and like get the most out of each free game. And those people are starting to learn to stay away from a product like this. I know that I'm infinitely lazy with video games, and I will play them for like 3 minutes and then go, oh, isn't that interesting? Okay. Probably never touch it again.
That's why I was, right?
Yeah.
Like I just don't have the time, unfortunately. But like the reality is here, right? Like I said, we know that the margins are so small on their hardware division.
Yeah.
And right now, really the software division, as we've seen, is not going so well, as they shuttered how many studios?
5 last week and more coming.
Yeah. The future of Xbox and Microsoft in the video game world is going to be very interesting. You know what this honestly reminds me of? Remember when the Sega Saturn was released?
Yep.
And that was basically all she wrote for Sega?
Well, they had a good go with the Dreamcast. Dreamcast was way.
No, but that was years after.
Yeah,
that was their re-emergence into the market after the 3DO and the Saturn failed.
Yep. Oh yeah, Saturn. I was a Sega Genesis guy, and I remember wanting the Saturn, but it was just out of reach. It just wasn't something that felt real. And there was a Jaguar in between that as well. There's a Genesis, then the Jaguar, then the Saturn. It's just crazy because the Jaguar was a CD-ROM game player that I really wanted. Now, I had a friend who had one.
Yeah, everyone had a friend that had this paperweight, right?
Yeah.
Because there weren't many games for the Saturn on top of it all.
No, very underdeveloped. But you know, so, like Xbox really shot themselves in the foot. It was that whole debacle with Xbox with Halo Infinite.
Yeah,
like I hate to say it.
So hold on. So can we blame the demise of Xbox and Microsoft's video game division to 343?
343.
343. I don't know what
I think that it was a major cog. I think between 343 Studios botching that land and having the whole marketing department go all in on it, and then missing it by that wide of a margin. And then you have to factor in, to be honest, there was video games that were outside of this that really hurt Xbox as well. Because I would have thought Xbox had a pretty good player count on Overwatch, and Overwatch 2 just completely bottled it. Right? And these things all have consequences on player base. You know, the thing that revived the hope of these companies was the dead cat bounce during the pandemic of everyone staying at home and trying to play because they were told to stay home. So that made video games look like they might get more viable. I think one of the interesting tellers is going to be when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out. How successful is it at that point?
In just over a year. These companies need to last just over a year because it was announced it's set for fall of 2025. Continue.
I would say if you're going to see Xbox kind of move out of the limelight, it's going to be gradual. It's going to take a few years. I think that their next move is going to be games as a service and not even market hardware, just be an app, because they lose so much on hardware.
That's what I think.
Yeah, and then I think they're going to have a go at that.
A console,
but they're also going to sell their software to PlayStation. Like
that's Halo what I'm thinking. Number one, they're going to become a software company with the only hardware that they sell is going to be like a box or a something that connects to the cloud, similar to
Stadia.
Yep.
Yeah, I really think that it's going to be.
Dude, we called this.
Yeah, it's going to be that, and there might be a component where they license other companies to build a piece of hardware for the nostalgia hounds that gets an Xbox certification and gets that app loaded onto it and is able to offload some of what's on the net into that box. But I could see
this
NVIDIA
happened
and
in the
companies
early
like that.
90s, late 80s, early 90s with Nintendo. They knew that they needed to look into the future. They already had the Super Nintendo down pat, and they were looking down to the future, and this whole CD-ROM craze was really starting to pick up. So they partnered with Sony for this add-on to the SNES.
Yep.
We all know what happened there.
Crazy. Yeah. Freaking crazy.
But I think that's going to happen. Like, can you imagine, Phil, if the Xbox becomes like the Android phone of the video game market? Which is fucking hilarious considering that it's Microsoft. But I really do think that they're going to partner with someone to create hardware to take that burden off of them.
I get mad at what Google has done to me, but I even get more upset when I think about what Microsoft has done over and over again. Like, and I paid for it. With Google, they generally try to refund you something to make you feel good about the fact that they ripped something that you loved away from you. With Microsoft, I don't know. Remember their attempt at a Windows phone? Like,
there are many attempts. They bought like
the
Nokia.
Duo, everything. Like, I'm just like, man, it's so frustrating as a customer of this company to just make them calm their shit and make a product and just stay behind it. Like, don't try to reinvent the box. The issue that I have with almost everything these days is the toxic need for every corporation to exponentially expand. It's not enough that we made 44 billion yen. No, we forecasted 54.6 billion yen, as in Square Enix. You know.
Don't get me started with analysts and analyst predictions and how that fucks the market up.
It's just ridiculous all the time. There's only so much money and so much time in the world, and they're trying to buy all the pieces of that, and we choose what we want to play. And and they're going sitting in the corner rolling the marble so hard on shit that's fucked up, like the Avengers, like Suicide Squad. Like, it came out, Warner Brothers lost $200 million on Suicide Squad, that game, right? Kill the Justice League. And
it killed something.
It killed something. Exactly. You took a perfectly viable company. And I don't know, they're trying to say that the devs wanted to make a games as a service thing. Bull fucking shit. I'm sorry, but
devs
bullshit.
Would never willingly do that unless they're told to.
They wanted to make another cool Batman game, except without Batman. They wanted to go into a new area. It was some marketing exec that said, we need to figure out a way to make money off this, because it's not enough to have a AAA title game for $70 that just goes out and becomes something that people play, and then we monetize the add-ons. Oh no, we want those kids' money. We want skin money. We want gun money. We want
what the problem that I have is with the video game system, and you alluded to this a little bit earlier. That's the fact that during the 2020 pandemic, video games were at their all-time high. And I feel like any goodwill that any company had, they turned around and they took a big shit on their feet.
Yeah. Big time.
And they said, fuck you. We're going to start and keep milking you. You fucking idiots.
No respect. And as well, it's really hard watching the video game industry from the news level that we have to absorb it to be able to do this podcast responsibly. And I'm having a really tough time watching every week more devs lose their jobs.
You know what?
Like,
it gets sickening to me about that. It's not so much, it is the devs losing their job. I hate seeing people lose their job. It's how fanboys and fandoms fucking celebrate people losing their jobs.
Oh yeah, there's a toxic side to it. but there's also a corporate toxicity to it.
Oh, of course.
The reason why those people are losing their
devs
jobs
get shit on in all direction, right?
Yeah, the reason why those people are losing their jobs is because their product just didn't make that enough money. It made money, but not enough money.
Not quite to what they wanted.
Exactly. It's like Xbox go out of their way and say, hey, Tango Studios, thank you so much for making Hi-Fi Rush. Our game of the year 2023. 2024, they shutter the studio and say, and then have the audacity the day after to issue a public statement that says, we need our studios to make more games like Hi-Fi Rush. So why did you close the studio? It's because it failed on Game Pass. It didn't launch anybody to buy Game Pass. And that was a day of release. Like, oh, hey, we're having an Xbox event. Oh, guess what? When you turn this off and load up your Xbox, you can download Hi-Fi Rush right today. There was no build up, no preamp, no anticipation. And the fan base loved it. But man, we got it all for free. And then they go, well, let's make a last ditch effort, try to sell it on PlayStation. Nope, well, shutter the studio. Studio that makes Dishonored, Prey, all those gone. Admittedly Redfall, but Redfall was a miss.
It's I don't get it, man. I just don't understand what these corporate overlords of the video game companies are thinking.
Yeah.
They really don't understand their market, I think. I think that's what it comes down to.
Well, I think that they look too much at a chart and not enough at exactly.
Yeah, they look at numbers. They try to make sense of numbers and graphs and data, but they don't actually know the market per se. I think that's what it comes down to ultimately.
Like my friend Mike and I, we yell into our little headset mics every week when we're playing Forza Horizon 5 and question whether or not anybody at Playground Studios actually plays the game. Because the fails are just so glaring when you find them. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what the hell, guys? If you had played your product, you would have called this out from a mile away. A mile. And like, do you have a testing department? Do any of the guys in there play the game? They get story sequences and talking points mixed up. They don't get the cars lined up for the right weeks. That makes sense with what they're doing elsewhere in the game. And that's the part. And this has just been watching them stumble through it for 2 versions of the game. And that's where I really wonder, like, who's driving this car? Is it marketing? Is it a bunch of people that don't really play the game, that just code and are told to do this and don't care about it, do it and walk away at the end of the day? You need to get some people involved that actually like the product and use the product, are passionate about the product. You're going to find your answers real quick.
Yep. Yeah. I don't get it, man. Having said that, retro gaming emulators are topping iOS and Apple TV charts.
Sure.
Now that Apple has allowed them to come into the stores, they're killing it. See, this is the type of stuff, right? People at those 2 companies and video game companies in general are going to look at that and they're going to say, you know what we need? More retro games.
More retro. Yeah. That's the craze. It's not the fact that they can fire up Zelda or Mario.
How can we monetize a retro game?
Yeah.
Oh, let's only release 5 boards and they have to pay for the rest of them.
Yep. Or the infamous Smurfberries game. Oh, you could sit there and mine Smurfberries. You could make certain yields each day. But if you wanted to get something that was really cool, it would take you playing that game every day for a month. Or here's $20 to buy the frickin' Smurfberries. In-game currencies.
Yep. All right. Tick-Tock. Let's talk some Tick-Tock before we go. Tick-Tock.
Full disclaimer, I don't have the Tick-Tock.
I do. Fuck.
I do have Reels, but I don't have TikTok.
You see
And there's a lot of
TikToks
TikTok.
about
Yeah,
a
I see
month
TikTok.
after I do.
I'm all right with that.
I'm just saying. I'm not proud of that stat at all.
Yeah, I'm like, careful with your words.
So there have been concerns, and this is the general gist of things, why TikTok is being banned, why they don't like TikTok. This is what it comes down to. There are concerns that the Chinese government could access sensitive user data through the short-form video app known as TikTok, which is owned by the Chinese company called ByteDance. This has prompted the U.S. government to pass legislation banning the social media platform unless it is sold to a government-approved
Non-foreign.
approved buyer.
Yep. Non-Chinese.
Now, legal experts say a TikTok ban without specific evidence violates the First Amendment, and a lot of people think that this legal challenge is going to halt the banning of TikTok. They say that it's going to be very hard for this ban to actually go through. Having said that, it's going to come down to the 11th hour. Now, here's the insane part. And I can't believe I'm even saying this out loud. But with all the issues, you know exactly what I'm going to say. There's an election in November.
Yep.
With all of the fucking issues that Trump is going to be facing over the next few months, you know how he clearly wins this election?
Yeah.
By saying that on day one, he will sign an executive order reversing this TikTok ban.
Yep. You can buy votes, literally.
Now, TikTok last week filed a legal challenge against the Biden administration over a law that would ban the video app. Lawmakers in the White House have justified the crackdown on TikTok by claiming the app's link to Beijing makes it a national security threat. Now, this is some of the issue that I have. So we're going to stop there. Now we're going to give our thoughts. We're going to give our opinion again. We have no horse in this race, especially being in Canada. Even if we were content creators in TikTok, we cannot monetize this. So let's talk about this from a tech point of view. So the U.S. government was able to convince other old people who don't understand technology that the Chinese government has the possibility of spying / gathering data, which is the truth, but I love how they say spying, gathering data through the use of the app. What difference does that have with every app ever created, especially social media apps like Facebook, like Google?
It's just where that data collection
Instagram
center is, right? It's in a foreign country. It gets noticed quicker. Like we had a controversy here in Canada. Tim Hortons years ago had an app, and they were wildly violating everyone's rights in this app. And then they apologized because they were doing things like monitoring your location in the background. You know, you wonder why Spotify is 93 megabytes in the background on your PC. They were monitoring your location and purposely putting, why don't you pull into Tim Hortons and get your regular double and things like that onto your phone, and advertising and manipulating data in that way. And the government here said, well, that's not ethical. And it's interesting because in Canada, the government has made a rule that no government cell phone can have TikTok installed.
Mm-hmm. Which is this, yeah.
Right? Because they think that there's credible info about that collection of data. There's two concerns that I've heard about this collection of data. Number one, I've heard the conspiracy theory, and I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but I've heard the theory that they control the algorithm. So I can tell you firsthand from Reels and whatnot, and I know TikTok works in the same way. They're going to key into the things that you key in. If you start looking at all Star Wars and Muppet stuff, it's going to show you content that has Star Wars and Muppet stuff in it. If you look at dick and fart jokes, it's going to be dick and fart jokes. All right. So I got dick fart jokes and I got Muppets and Star Wars. So the algorithm goes hard on those topics. The algorithm for most American kids and most Canadian kids, I would think, is a lot of fairly absurd, entertaining content. The more absurd, the better in most cases. I'm not, immune to it either. I have a good laugh when I see someone doing something stupid as shit on social media. And I think that there is a theory that they control the degree to which that algorithm goes after certain locations in the world. So Chinese kids are getting educational TikToks to make them smarter and more worldly and able to, bring them up in a certain way, and then dumb down the North American kids by showing them crap from, the bottom of the barrel from TikTok. That's one theory that I've heard. I don't know how true it is. There must be some way to validate that, the same way that there must be some way to validate where the data is and who owns it, like who's got their hands on it. They're afraid that the Chinese
or where ByteDance transfers that data to.
Like when ByteDance hands over that data to the Chinese government, they must have some information about that they are gathering locations of American citizens based off of this app.
So here's the thing, Phil. Legal experts said that in addition to proving that TikTok is a security risk, U.S. officials will have to prove in court that its ban was the least restrictive way of dealing with the threat.
I think that there's going to be a strategy that's presented about national security that's going to be an interesting one in court.
How are you going to be able to justify national security on a non-government official's phone? They're going to have to show somehow. Yeah, they showed WMDs in 2003. Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
2000, yeah. But, they're going to have to come out with some information flat out saying how this information is being manipulated and how this information is being used against us to constitute a national security threat.
I think the confusing part for the government right now is that they're trying to aim TikTok and their distrust of TikTok to be equivalent of their distrust of the communists.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They're hoping on that fear-mongering strategy, but the unfortunate part is that it's not working, and it'll be very interesting when TikTok calls out Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Because that's going to happen very soon.
Oh, the gloves are
going to come off. They're going to question Instagram and Facebook and
I think this potentially ends up being a fight that might just make the IT world a little more ugly for a lot of companies and a lot of different regulatory bodies, regulating industry behaviors. This could undo a lot and cause a lot of financial leanings towards, instead of using the world in the cloud mode, it might force the use of like data centers to come back in a more a lockdown way. I think where data is going and where data is being stored might become something that gets questioned and audited a lot more from a government standpoint.
And what's to say ByteDance isn't going to just cave and say, okay, the U.S. users will have their own server on U.S. property.
Yeah, and that's what they're offering in a lot of ways. And I have the same questions about companies like Tencent. Like, how come Tencent's okay? They can own massive amounts of American stuff, but no, ByteDance, evil. Like, it's all a question of
they tried this with Tencent a few years ago, remember?
Yeah, they did. And Huawei. That big
that's a whole other can of worms.
Yep. But it's just funny.
And that one came silent when Huawei started calling out American companies and their practices.
Yep, because the same thing that they were being accused of baking into their hardware was the same thing that Cisco was doing in their hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at some of the big Wireshark or whatever those programs were that do all the network checking that got hacked. They got, you know what I mean? Like that, those exploits were just brutal and whatnot because of backdoors, man. You know what it's like when you're a dev on those things. You build in these little backdoors and you don't think anyone knows about them, but eventually they find it. They find it good.
We're just talking right now about what ByteDance is doing and how ByteDance is challenging this, but we haven't even talked about the creators themselves. The creators, in my opinion, will be able to launch a legal fight over this because you're taking away their way of making a living.
This is where I get really nervous for any content creator who is brave enough, and I respect the crap out of it, to go full-time into content creation and really live off of a paycheck that comes from a company that you are hosting your creative content on and have the deal with them paying you for that usage. It can disappear at any time. Like you see YouTube doing this all the time where they change the algorithm and they completely kill some users.
Mm-hmm.
Like their channels aren't viable anymore. They can't make money. They just can't do it because they took a step back. They decided that they can't produce a video every day. They need to produce one a week or maybe switch formats to long form. And then that becomes no good. And I think that we have to be careful because it's going to open a door about that too, where it's like, I think that ultimately legislation is going to have to catch up where algorithm changes have to be able to be visible and monitorable by, again, some kind of regulated industry.
We've talked about this so often, right?
Yep.
Where the government and regulation and all of this is so far behind in tech.
This is where it's showing its spots, right? When you bring about these legal challenges, and it's like, there's going to be, I'm sure there have been times when people have just been absolutely screwed by the algorithm. And then they want to bring about an action to get their livelihood back. Or even when your content disappears, your account gets locked out, because of something you didn't do. And then you lose out on months worth of monetization. And your content might be deleted if your account gets hacked or whatever. It might get completely removed. And then magically, that is a deletion. Yep. There is no Apple return to the old pics. So I just see a lot of it's a really risky venture. That's all I'd like to say. My heart goes with people who may be impacted by this. And I agree that it's their livelihood. It's sad if it's gone. But I also realize that we need to be careful about these apps too. Like, to think that you pick up your phone and you make however much money you need to make each month or more than what you need each month just off of filming off of that. Hats off to you. But man, that's a dangerous game.
It is a dangerous game. And that's why I'm kind of glad that here in Canada, we don't have those monetization opportunities like they do in the States.
Yeah, it's pay to play, it seems. All right. It's
crazy.
You want people to use your product. In the States, you got to pay them. In Canada, we're like, how drunk can we get and laugh at this?
What do you think is going to happen?
What I want to have happen, to be honest, is
Is what you want and what you think two different things, or is it?
Yeah,
along the same
that's
way?
why I'm separating this.
Okay, that's key. Let's separate them.
So what I want to have happen is I'd love to see Tick-Tock hurt. I'd like to see it wounded. Not maybe taken down, but wounded seriously in the sense that they question whether or not they want to be in this game. What I think is going to happen is I think the court case is going to go the way of Tick-Tock.
Yeah.
I think that the courts are going to find a way. And that outcome doesn't piss me off. I just think that it's going to be politicized to be done before the vote.
I was going to say
that vote becomes way more temperamental when it's based off of TikTok. For that generation.
Can you imagine if the next president, like if I was the Chinese government just watching this unfold, I would be fucking howling at the fact that the next U.S. election could be decided on TikTok because of TikTok.
Not Putin, but quite literally the TikTok generation.
Jesus Christ.
And there's not one person that can blame Facebook or anything like that. It's like, no, that was TikTok. All TikTok.
And the worst part about this is like we haven't talked about this, but like we've seen the rhetoric about foreign interference and this and that. They literally brought this on themselves.
Yeah, they literally created this behemoth and said, oh, feed it blood. Let's see what it does.
I agree with you. I think that ultimately we are going to be seeing this go in TikTok's way. I think that there's just way too much that can go against it. If TikTok plays the PR game and they line themselves up saying, look, we've tried XYZ solution. The American government has said no to all of them. They're handcuffing us. What can we do? Right?
100%, buddy. 100%.
That's the issue. But again, they've done this to themselves. With that said, Phil, you know what you got to do now.
Yep, I'm going to let the people know if you want to catch up with us. You can find us at www.itscanonpodcast.com. You can track us down on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook at It's Canon Podcast. You can email us at show@itscanonpodcast.com. You can find us anywhere where you find like podcasts. And as well, you can check out our friends over at SNME Radio. They have a channel on Patreon called SNME Radio. They talk about wrestling. They talk about pop culture. It stars your friend Boris. And they would love to have your support. And please be sure to like and subscribe. And, thanks so much for spending your time with us. We really do appreciate any and all listeners. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends, tell them where they can find us, and there's so many ways that you can find us. You can listen to us on podcast form, like Phil just said, and you can also watch us live each and every single episode on YouTube. We tried to do these on Monday, but it was a long weekend in Canada here. Phil, I think it's safe to say that we should probably do this next Tuesday again.
Yeah.
Mainly because the Americans have a long weekend. Unless the American listeners want to
help them out,
chill with us. We'll see.
Hopefully my sound won't cut. Maybe my mesh extender will be here.
Right?
I'll solve my issues.
Thank you so much for listening to the It's Canon Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things, everything, all things geek, all things nerd, all things pop culture, and we specify in all things movies, video games, books, comics, Lego, and so much more. He's Phil. I'm Boris. Until next time, take care and stay tranquilo.